All right, we're not quite ready to put our sand down and do our styrofoam. I'd like to have the floor joists and our X Factor on above here. It's just going to ensure that if we get a rain day, that the sand is going to stay level and that our foam is not going to be disturbed by any rainwater. But we've got an important detail that has to happen right here, and we've got our stego going down. So this is a bearing wall. We've got the plate tacked in place. We've got our top plate, our single top plate, not our double top plate, laid out. We've got to frame this wall now, obviously, so that we can put our floor joists on. But this piece of stego right here will allow us to ensure that we've got continuity underneath this wall. When we tie our fast foot and our stego against the perimeter, against the ICF, pull it across, we'll be able to tie it into this, pick up on the other side. Continuity is key to all things. This provides us with our air barrier, our vapor barrier, and it's also our soil gas poly. So if there is any radon issues, we can mitigate it. We have the soil gas poly down, so it should not migrate up. We are roughed in for our radon over here, and we're going to passively vent that right up through the roof. The stego is also our vapor barrier. If for some reason there is any water vapor underneath here, it's not going to be able to travel or migrate up. And as I've mentioned before, it's an air barrier. I've got a chalk line strung across here. Now there's multiple ways that you can establish what your stud height is. This one just happens to work very well for us today. I could use a laser, yes, but sometimes the chalk line is just faster. You have to ensure that your bottom is cut square. I set it on my stud mark and I can feel that it's nice and square, and I just rub that line, come down. That one didn't catch very well, but I can see the mark. Hopefully you can too. Square that up and simply cut it. Since you still have the stud in your hand, you might as well mark the crown if you haven't already done so. Rinse and repeat, and we'll get this wall framed up in no time. Laying out for our floor trusses, and accuracy is just as important here as it is anywhere else. And today I'm laying out 1 3/4 inches back because our floor trusses are 3.5 inches wide. And when we get down below, it'll make sense. I'll explain why sometimes centers or your on-center measurement is very important. Right here is a prime example of why consistent layout, consistent measurements, and understanding where your layout is from and understanding how an on-center measurement works. So we've got 16 on-centers for our bearing wall / shear wall that start at the outside edge of framing. And we've got 16 on-center measurements for our floor trusses, which start at the same point. But our offset is different to get that 16-inch on-center. So 3/4 offset or back set however you want to do it. Start 15 1/4, then hook on and measure 16ths from there on. But in order to get this to stack perfectly the way we have it here, for the floor joist, we have an 1 3/4 offset because it's 3.5 inches wide. And this is important because our shear wall down here, our load path is going to start down here. It's going to go straight up through the floor joist. The next shear wall that stacks right on top of this, the stud's going to line up directly with this stud. The load path is going to be continuous from the truss at the top of the roof straight down through to the footing here. There's going to be no issues with our hold down anchors. There's going to be no issues with bearing or our load wall. Very important point, and I really cannot stress this enough, is that line that we snapped, you have to maintain the line. And you have to understand whether you're going to be on top of the line, just behind the line, covering the line, whatever method you use, as long as you maintain this line as straight. If this line is straight and this first row of sheathing goes down perfectly straight, it's going to be very easy to proceed. You're not going to end up fighting to try and keep your sheets square or to try and keep them square on the floor trusses. Advantech is actually a little less than 96 inches because they tell you space the panels 1/8 inch at the butt joints. So I'll use a 2.5 inch sheathing nail as a spacer when I'm dropping sheets to maintain that 1/8 inch space. It just makes your life easier. You don't have to guesstimate what it is. The nail will maintain that 1/8 inch space for you. You are supposed to shake Advantech subfloor adhesive for a minimum of 45 seconds vigorously before you use the new can. And I've been doing it by hand for quite a while because the bean counter will not let me have one of those fancy attachments. So last night I decided, in anticipation of today, I would make my own out of a Sawzall blade, some self-tappers, and some ring clamps. Plus, it's a great excuse to use my favorite screwdriver. The only question is, how long is my fancy shaker attachment gonna last? All right, don't do dumb things, but if you do something dumb, at least make it educational. At the end of the day yesterday, I did not move this beater block. So this is a great demonstration for how tenaciously Huberwood's Advantech subfloor adhesive works. One of the things I appreciate about Advantech X Factor is it's part of a system from Huberwood's. So if I use their subfloor adhesive with my floor trusses, I use the Advantech X Factor, they're gonna give me a squeak-free guarantee. All right, pull that in, get your foot on it, right? 1, 2, 3. Ready? Yep. 1, 2, 3. Beauty. Skate plate, it is literally a table saw that attaches to your skill saw. It has replaced the table saw in just about all of our framing applications. If you've got a bunch of rips to make, whether they're small like this or 2 feet, I can change out the guide rail to the Skatezilla guide, and that's it. Table saw quality rips with a skill saw. Super easy. This is a great example of the acrylic adhesive. You can see how thick the adhesive is. See it peeling back on my fingertips. So when you place your tape on the seam, once you're happy with your placement and you have a sharp knife to cut with, not that, you want to wet the tape. You want to apply pressure to the tape because it is pressure sensitive. It's important to roll the tape because it is pressure sensitive. When you apply pressure, all that adhesive that I showed you earlier, it warms up and it starts to flow, and it forms a much tighter bond with all the micro surfaces that we have on our X Factor. So I don't know what it is. I love X Factor, but every time we're dropping a floor, it starts to cloud over, and it literally feels like it could rain any second now. I don't know if we're gonna get wet pulling out of here, but very important to roll the tape. We're just gonna call it wide angle lens experiment. Okay, so we're good. I'm gonna run the tape on that. Let's get the trailer packed up, Kelsey. And then we will organize a few things. So if you just want to make sure the trailer is good.